Hola, soy Alfonso Escámez de Pecados Veniales y en doble firma vas a poder descubrir casi todas las marcas de relojería independiente en nuestros Indie Talks. Espero que os guste. A new series of interviews devoted to independent watch brand will be called Indie Talks. In this first interview, we have as a guest a young brand that is one of the most innovative in the sector. We speak with Benoît Mintiens, Ressence CEO. Welcome and thank you very much for being with us in Indie Talks. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Hello, Alfonso.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start knowing more about you and about Ressence. For the people in the audience that may not know you, you're a kind of a star in the independent watch brands. Who is Benoît Mintiens? Have you always been involved in the watch sector?
Yes, well, my background's a bit different. Usually, independent watchmakers are watchmakers. They come from the trade, they come from watchmaking, and then they decide when they're a little more creative than the average watchmaker, they create their own watch brand. But my background is more is coming from industrial design. So I have been a consultant for many years before I decided to start Ressence. And so also of everything that you see from Ressence, the way Ressence is as a brand, what you perceive from the brand, is very much influenced by, of course, this background that I have basically.
Okay. But
I have Alfonso, I have a practical question. Do you hear my colleague speaking or not?
No.
Okay, good. So sorry.
Then what made you develop your own brand and where the idea come from?
Yeah. I developed Ressence because watches in general are a very multidimensional field in which you can be creative in many ways. And so I have, for me, a watch as a product, because as a product designer, you look at a watch from a product point of view, is a very multidimensional object. For example, you have many technical, you have aesthetical, you have social, you have ergonomics, you have materials, production, of course. So it's a very, very wide area in which you can be creative in many different directions, in many fields, actually. And there are not so many products that are like that. So for me, it was a very interesting industry to apply creativity in such a way that all these dimensions I'm referring to, you can all bring them to another level or to another definition of what that is. And when you do that for all these different dimensions and you do it in a coherent way, you end up with something, a new reality, something completely different but coherent on itself. So as if I would compare it to maybe software, you would have Windows from Microsoft, but then you have iOS, you see? So they also do something, they also work, but it's a different way of doing it. And this is really this logics that I applied to, for me, fine watchmaking. Could have been something else, but for me it was a very interesting industry to create within.
I think that it has a special meaning, but what is the meaning of Ressence brand name?
The meaning, the name comes from Renaissance de l'essentiel. So it's a French combination of two words. The rebirth of the essence for Ressence and for an industrial designer is the functionality, is the function of the product. A product that is not functional has not much meaning. There is no reason for existence. If a product is not functional, it may be not a good idea to have that product. So the function being the expression of time, not being maybe the anglage or the tourbillon, whatever. For me, as a product designer, the function of a watch is to express time, and so it's a rebirth of the expression of time. That's why the dial is very particular on a Ressence.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an special and unique design? What is your language, your DNA? Can we consider? We talk about it when we have our first meeting. We talk about it. Can we consider your watches as regulators?
Aha. That's because you're way too much with your nose into watchmaking, Alfonso. Because
I'm too old. I'm too old.
I didn't even know about regulators when I created Ressence, because I didn't know anything about watchmaking basically when I started the brand. So it's really something that comes from an ergonomical thing. We really try to improve the readability, the legibility of our watches. Not only that, actually what we try to do is to improve the relationship between you and the watch. Feels very foggy when I say that, but imagine yourself that a product that you don't have a good relation with it, you will not wear it, you will not use it, you will not interact with that product. So the relationship that you have with the product is a fundamental dimension of a product. And so when it comes to watches, it comes to how easy is it to read, how sure are you when you have take a look at the watch, how sure are you about the time you have read, how sure are you about that? How does it feel on the wrist? How does it feel on you? How do you look with that watch? So there are many aspects basically that will influence your perception and your relationship with the watch. So that is really the starting point for us, is really to think about this dimension that I think is not done very often in watchmaking, to be honest.
Yeah. I can confirm that I feel very fine with my watch.
Very good. And that's an old one. So you
Yeah,
have a
the
very,
beginning.
very early one.
As me, as old as me. How big
Yeah.
is your company nowadays, and how
Mhm.
big do you want it to be in the next 5 years, more or less, in terms of production,
Mm.
staff? Could it be that too much growth be in the detrimental of the industry of the
Mm.
company?
Yeah. We have a very organic way in approaching the growth. So we don't push things. We don't, for example, other brands that would do consignment, for example, of watches in retailers just to grow faster or to have an impression that they grow faster. And there are many things that brands can do to push their growth. You have brands that buy Instagram followers. You have brands that would even buy their watches on auctions to give an impression that their brand is very expensive or things like that. So all these things we don't do. We try to be as authentic as we can in the development of who we are. And that's why I'm also very transparent about things. We are in an industry where there is always, because it's a little bit Swiss, so they don't like to share things. They're a bit secretive, but we are not. So for us, it's there are not so many secrets except the watches we're working on. I think that there is a steady growth since the start. Actually, when you look at the curves, they're quite straight and they're always in the same angle. And so today we have a production that would be, I think, for 24, it's going to be around 700, 750 watches. So to have a little bit of rough idea about how big it is. And that is, I would say, a little bit above the average of independent watchmakers. If I consider my colleagues, they're all about, I would say, an average would be 500 pieces in watchmaking. If you take the very small ones and you take the more evolved ones altogether, I think the average is 500 pieces per year, so a little bit above that. And today we are 15 people in the organization, so spread over Belgium and Switzerland. And these 15 people, also, it's maybe important to know that, and that's also influenced by our background, is that we consider that our core business is not to produce components. So there are many smaller independent brands that take pride in making their components themselves. We don't. We consider that our core business is to create the watches and to market them. And so this is for us our core business. So to create very specific products, very unique products, and then market them in a very unique way. And so the people that work for Ressence are, of course, we have watchmakers because we do the after sales here. We do quality control. So all the watches are produced in Switzerland with different subcontractors, and they arrive sometimes assembled. In some cases, we even assemble them here in Antwerp. It depends a bit, and then we ship the watches worldwide from Antwerp. So this is a part of the organization here in Antwerp, but of course there is all the other processes, the logistics, the sales, the marketing, the branding, the communication. So there are many things you have to do as a small brand. Actually, you have to do the same as big brands, but with a lot less people. So people need to be a little more flexible with small organizations. So that's about the scale we are in today.
And for the future, do you plan to grow a lot, or?
I think we need to reach a certain sweet spot. As a company, you have these steps, these stages that you have in an organization where you have to reach a certain volume so that your processes are efficient with the people that you have. And I think today we are in between two of those. And so when you do, let's say, 300 watches, your processes are not the same than when you do 700. But I think 700 is still somewhere in between. I think for us, it's just a number, but we think, okay, the next level is 1,000 pieces per year. And I think at that level, you have a certain business volume, you have a certain revenue, and so you can put a team next to that. And this is for us the way we are growing towards, so that we have an organization that is more efficient in what it does, meaning that the people that run the processes, run the functions, they are all very efficient in what they're doing, and that they're not bothered with things they also have to do, but they're not so good at, or whatever. It doesn't interest them, but they have to do it because there's no one else to do it. So yeah, a company is a very moving thing, but I believe that we are growing to a scale that is that's a bit larger than we are today. So this is really where we are heading to in the coming let's say 3 to 5 years.
Okay, then considering your DNA, the image that your watches have, who's your main competitor?
Actually, it's not that I want to do political answers here, but I think our competitor is your smartphone in your pocket, because when you look at the positioning that we have as a brand, and compared to other brands, I think for us it's still very important that what our watches do and the reason why you wear them needs to be more efficient, then would it be more easy to take your smartphone in your pocket? If taking your smartphone in your pocket gives you more reassurance to read the time, well, as a watchmaker, you did not do a good job. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is to make sure that for a person that wears a Ressence, when he wants to know the time, his first reflex is to check his watch, not to check his phone.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes this thing I explained you in the beginning about the relationship. So if you have if a watch, sometimes I compare it to a butler. It provides you a service. So you say, "Oh, what time is it, James?" Whatever, and you look at your watch. And if what you look at is clear and loud, you have done a good job as a butler, as a service provider. If the answer is blah, 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 then you say, "What? Okay, I'll take my phone. What time is it?" So for us as a brand, we really try to be relevant and be meaningful as a brand by being functional also. Not only, but this is a basic requirement, I believe, for Essence as a brand. So my answer is a little bit political and also philosophical.
For sure. But how do you see the market? Because now, as you have said, there is the new generation are not related, or they don't love watches and they prefer just a phone, a smartphone.
Mhm.
And how do you see your clients now and your future clients?
Mhm.
Because I think that there is an important work to do in terms of communication
Yeah,
to get the new generations into watches.
yeah. Well, first of all, by not saying that an Apple Watch is not a watch, I would start to avoid saying these things because this is a really, really bad signal. I think that if you're not used to wear something on your wrist from childhood on, so our generation, Alfonso, just for the younger people, uh, we were very happy when we had the first Swatch watches on the wrist.
Yeah.
That was cool to have a Swatch. That's not cool anymore, apparently. But today it's cool to have an Apple Watch. And would you not have wear a Swatch when you were young? Maybe you would not have moved on to maybe higher watchmaking. So I think the first thing that we all need to do as an industry is to see that we are in an ecosystem generation also generation wise we are in this ecosystem, and it's up to us as an industry to make sure that for every generation there is a solution, there is an answer, there is a good answer that for that generation. Sometimes different generation needs different things on their when it comes to watches. Uh, when you're young, you want to be cool in the classroom. You want to have the biggest watch, whatever. But when you are 30, you want to show that you're successful. So you need another watch to do that. And when you're 50, like me, you need something else. So every generation needs something, but you need to make sure as an industry that you cover all these things so that the fact that you wear something on your wrist that gives you the time and maybe something more, well, is there. And so, yeah, I'm a strong believer that uh, anything that you wear on your wrist, as long as it gives time, is good. Is good.
Okay. Then what are the pros and the cons of being an independent brand?
There are many advantages, but of course there are also disadvantages. You're right. I think the most obvious advantage is the fact that, well, the word says it. We are independent. What does that mean? Some people think, yeah, it comes from because you are not part of a group or something like that. But I think it's not that. Being an independent brand is being independent thinker, independent from marketing logics that are driven by quarterly numbers, or maybe production quantities, whatever. So it's a very different way of thinking, where there's a lot more creativity. We don't sell. I think independent watchmaking is also one of these fields where we still sell products, where most larger corporations, they moved from selling products to selling brands. And so I think this is also maybe the success that we have, because it makes us a lot more authentic as a producer of watches. So I believe that being an independent, that's, I think, an advantage, that so that you're allowed to not consider the cost of production less. It's of course it's important, but maybe less important. I think your focus as an independent brand is more on, is it original, is it special, is it whatever, is there a nice story to tell, or is there an innovation that no one else has, whatever. Of course, there are a lot of disadvantages, Alfonso. Usually we talk about the sunshine, not the rain, but there is also a lot of rain when you're a small independent brand, because one of the aspects is of course the size that you have within this industry. We are little ants when you look at us as a brand, as brands, compared to these larger corporations. It's very clear when you walk around in Watches and Wonders. The size of the booth is
Yeah, it's quite
quite
different.
clear. It's quite clear, and so well, as a client to a subcontractor, you also feel that. You feel that as a small organization, that they don't consider you as important as a larger group. So, and maybe in a store it's the same. You don't represent the business that a larger corporation will represent for a retailer. So the amount of attention that you get from this retailer is also maybe a little less. And so all these elements are compensated by the fact that what we do makes probably a lot more sense from a product point of view, from a meaningful point of view. But yes, let's be honest. Most of us, as independent brands, we don't usually our customers. It's not their first watch. So again, this ecosystem. I talked about the ecosystem in age, but there is also an ecosystem in the fact that the larger groups, they create demand, they create the aspiration towards watchmaking and fine watchmaking for us. And it's a customer will usually start with the well-known brands and then maybe move on to independent brands. Usually it's not going the other way. And usually, we have it, but it's rather rare that we have customers that have no watches and then they buy a Ressence. And they don't buy it, they buy it because of the product, because they are not attracted to the industry as watchmaking industry. They don't care about it. They would buy a Ressence because of the product. So it's a very different motivation for them to buy a product.
I always said that once you go to the dark side of independent, there's no way back.
I don't agree. I don't agree. I think the world of watchmaking is a very interesting one, because for every person there is a watch, and for every watch there's a person, or an individual. And that's the beauty of watchmaking, is that, and certainly within independent watchmaking, actually that's how I feel it. Maybe my colleagues don't, but I really feel it like my colleagues. They are my colleagues. They're not my competitors. I don't see them as my competitors. Like, ooh, I need to make sure I'm like this. So we have, because we are so different, and the proposition that we have is so different. We don't feel like competitors. Maybe we are, because in the end, yeah, you buy one watch a year. So is it going to be a Ressence, or is it going to be whatever other brand, independent watchmaking brand? So for sure, we are we are competitors, but I still don't feel it like that. And that's the beauty of watchmaking, I believe.
Mhm. Also, I have to say that maybe for the customer, for the client, the good thing of independence is that you feel that you are closer to the brand.
Mhm.
And I think also for you, because I'm sure that most probably a great percentage of your customer, you know them.
Yes and no. We know a few, of course,
Mhm.
but we at Ressence, we only sell through retailers. So, and the retailers, they have the tendency not to share their customers to us, even if we ask sometimes. Most of them prefer to keep it for them. But yes, of course, we have. They can send me an email directly, and I will answer it. That's for sure. And the people that did will recognize that it goes like that. On the other hand, Ressence is not called Benoît Mintiens. It's Ressence, so it's a brand with certain values. We have a community supporting us, a community of followers, but also a community of owners. Maybe they're both. So I also want to make sure that they are attracted to what we stand for as a brand and not what I stand for as a person. So this is maybe a bit different for some brands that really are more focused on the person that created it, and usually they have the name of the person that created that brand. But I don't see it like that. So this is a choice, of course, as a company, that I think that people should buy a Ressence and not buy a watch from Benoît Mintiens that is called Ressence.
Mhm. I have read some studies that claim that the way your brand Ressence watches show the time is the easiest and fastest way to be understood by the brain. Is it true? Is it correct?
Yeah, then the article is not completely clear. There is indeed, it's more efficient. But we actually, what if I can, it's a study that was conducted by a professor at Harvard, and he is a neuroscience professor, and he was conducting a study about how the process in the brain that translates, or that gives you the orientation in time, starting from a certain way to display this time. So how efficient is it for the brain to receive the information in such a way or such a way so that you as a person, you can orientate yourself in the dimension time in the fastest way? And so he came about Ressence in his study. He asked to include a Ressence dial in his study, and yes, came out that it was a very efficient way to represent time, but it's not the most efficient way, because we have then done a new exercise together where we took the Ressence logics and we applied all the knowledge that he gained from his study to a new concept. Of course, it's not a completely new concept. It's a concept based on Ressence, but improved. And we did it again. And that, I can tell you, was a big, big step forward in efficiency of reading. But we did not do a watch yet like that, because the concept that I developed for taking this knowledge into account, we did that on a computer screen. And so on a computer screen, it's easy to change things, but we do mechanical watches. So the translation of what you see on the screen into a mechanical watch is not super easy. So I didn't do the technical translation, or I'll do it. I only did it partially. But yes, for us, of course, one day there will be a watch that is super mega efficient to read, coming from Ressence. Yes.
Okay, great. Another question. Winning the Horological Revelation Prize in 2013 at the GPHG,
Yeah.
it was a turning point from the brand. Did it change the recognition from the customers and press?
You don't feel it that much, to be honest, as a brand. At least we didn't feel it so much. It's not that certainly we had huge demands or something like that. But I think it's more a prize for within the industry. That's actually how I feel it. And maybe now that we're 10 years later, maybe customers are more looking at these aspects of a brand. But I have to believe, I think it was more that my colleagues were aware that Ressence represented something because of this prize or something like that. So I think it's a more an inside, I wouldn't call it an inside job, but something from the industry that recognize certain actors within its perimeter and says, okay, this company is interesting because of that, or this company is interesting because of that. So yes, for me personally, of course, it was a great recognition. I was super proud of receiving this prize, because when you look at the other brands that get them, you don't just get that prize. It's really not easy. But it is not working like, for example, the Oscars in the cinema, for example. When you win an Oscar, you can be sure that you're going to sell more tickets. And a lot more tickets because of that price. And that's, I think, less the case for the GPHG.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit what is inside the watch. What calibers are you using in your watches? What is the rock system and how does it work?
Okay.
And how does the magnetic transmission work? Because it's something,
Alfonso.
putting magnets inside the watch is something quite curious.
Okay, many questions.
Yeah.
Let me explain you first the basic system of a Ressence. The basic system of Ressence is that you have a ROX. You named the word. What is ROX? ROX is basically the name we gave to the system that we developed to show the time as we do it at Ressence, meaning that we don't have physical hands on our watches. Everything works with discs. All these discs are in one surface. They're rotating inside each other. And to do that, to move in a certain way, this requires a mechanism that is hidden behind. You don't see it when you wear the watch. And all these mechanisms, everything together, is about, just to make it easy, 200 components. And all these gears, axles, stones, discs, whatever, they all move in a synchronized way to indicate the time. This is what we call ROX. It stands for Ressence Orbital Convex System. Orbital, it rotates like in orbit. It's convex. Our watches are not flat, they're curved. That means that they are three-dimensional, what is quite unique in watchmaking, to have real three-dimensional watches. And of course, it's a system because it's a mechanism. And all these ROXs are driven by a movement. And so we buy actually a basic movement that we modify. So we don't yet say it's our own movement. It's a movement we buy that we modify because of the fact that we only need the minutes from that movement. So usually movements, they have hours and seconds, maybe sometimes a date. They also have a crown. All these things, we take them out. So we only keep the minutes, and then we change the whole gear train inside, because the weight of the module is, of course, a lot more than a hand. So we need to increase a little bit the power of the barrel. We also need to strengthen all the gears inside. because of the weight of the dial. So there are quite some things that we change. So we simplify and we ruggedize a basic movement to drive the module that we have. That's the way we do it today. And this movement is always in the backside, on the back case of the watch. And so the minutes will drive the whole dial. And by rotating the dial, you generate all the other time dimensions. So it's the minutes that drives the dial, and the dial will generate the hours, the weekday, the date, and whatever, all the other functions that we have depending on the models that we have. So this is the way a Ressence is built. It's automatic. All the watches are automatic that we have. And they're also in titanium for the weight. Because again, when I talk about the first discussion that we have about ergonomics and relationship, I think the weight is a very important aspect. In the old school, they would say a watch needs to be heavy because then it gives you an idea of value. Well, we believe that the lightness is the future, less than weight is the future. And so we believe that a lighter watch is more modern than a heavy watch. And so we think, and also a lighter watch is more comfortable on the wrist than a heavy watch. So we use titanium for all the components. So basically also not only the case, it's also the dial that is in titanium. So all the parts that turn around are all in titanium to really make this watch as light as possible. So our lightest watch is only 32 grams heavy, so very, very light.
Mm-hmm. And another question, what made you removing the typical crown that we have in the first models and to have now the everything at the back of the case?
I wasn't perfect in the beginning, Alfonso. It took some time.
No, this one is perfect also.
The crown, I hope I will not shock people, but the crown is a really bad invention. Actually, it's an invention that is more than 100 years old. It's, I think, Philippe that became friends with Mr. Patek one day that invented the crown. So that's a long time ago. And the crown is a typical invention of an engineer. What does that mean? An engineer basically, and I think 100 years ago, people, when they looked at mechanical things, they were putting the mechanical object before the user. So to translate that in other words, the user had to adapt to the machine. Remember, again, when we were young, Alfonso, we had the first personal computers. And I guess you remember how they looked. It was a black screen with a green dot blinking, and you had to type code to do something. So I had to adapt to the machine. And I hope you have children. And if you have had children, you will have noticed that when you give them an iPad, they can find the pictures when they're 3 years old. So it means that the product computer has evolved and has adapted to the user. And that is also what I believe we do, because Ressence is a real 21st century take on fine watchmaking. We use the logics of the 21st century design processes and that we apply them to watchmaking. That's what we basically do. And in 21st century, it's not the user that needs to adapt to the product. It's the product that needs to adapt to the user. And that is why a crown we took it out because it makes no sense. It's not ergonomical at all. So it's all too small. And then you cannot use it properly. And then if you make it big, well, then it's uncomfortable. So it is a typical solution that an engineer would say, okay, yeah, we need to set it. Okay, let's put it there, whatever. Oh yeah, it hurts a bit, but okay. So you need to adapt. So that is for me the wrong way of looking at a product. So again, we really look at it from, well, what would be it today? Same in the car industry. Look at a car today, it drives by itself. Look at a car that is, let's say, 100 years old. You need to adapt to the car, I can tell you. So this industry also has gone through this evolution. So I didn't do something really spectacular. I just applied normal and logical uh, design thinking processes to fine watchmaking.
Okay. Then also for our viewers, why some of your calibers are submerged in oil? And what's the reason? Because I think it's very important.
Yes. And again, it comes from this logic of trying to be more efficient as a watch to show the time. So why do we have oil? First of all, not all our watches are filled with oil. And that's important to know. From the 6 models that we have today, there are only 2 with oil inside. And why did we put oil? We filled the dial or the rocks, basically, the whole module is inside oil. So it's really a chamber that fills the half of the watch. So the whole rocks is inside the oil. And the effect that you get is very comparable to what is done in digital screens. In digital screens, you also have the impression that the information is really on the outside of the glass. And it comes from the fact that what manufacturers do is that they put a layer of gel in between the glass and the LCD or whatever OLED screen that you have. And it gives you this impression. So we did the same because by doing that, you dematerialize the watch even more. So it becomes, you're going to translate that in Spanish, dematerialization. But the whole effect that you get is as if the watch is not a mechanical thing anymore. It becomes complete a screen. It becomes expression of time just by itself. There's no physical, tangible dimension on it anymore. And that is so the opposite that of what usually is done in watchmaking, where most brands really try to show the complexity and all the mechanisms and all the gears and all the things. We really try to do the opposite. We try to take it out. We only show the time. And by putting the oil, you even take out the idea that time is represented by physical components. They're gone with the oil. It seems as if it's just a screen. There's nothing anymore. So it really reflects this philosophy that we have, pushed really to a certain degree, that is really bringing reading the information in a kind of dematerialized way. I cannot find a better word. So that the watch is really an object expressing time, and it's not the mechanics or things like that. This is my problem, the mechanics. You as a user, you need to be able to read the time easily. But Alfonso, you are also a watch freak. So you know that there are certain things important in watchmaking. And for example, one of them is the fact that friction is a very important one in a watchmaking. So you have to reduce the friction of everything. That's why watchmaking is using these jewel stones to reduce the friction. Well, what I don't understand as a non-watchmaker is that the industry never came with a solution like that, filling their watches with oil. Because by filling the watch with oil, we found out that our oil-filled watches need 4 times less energy to run than the air-filled ones. So it's a very efficient way for a watch to run in oil than to run in air. So it's a lot better. And so for us, it has a lot of advantages. Just practical ones like after sales. We virtually have no after sales on these oil-filled watches because the mechanism is so well protected inside the oil, and so on. So there are many advantages, of course. But the main reason is really graphical. So really to make sure that it's easier to read. This is really where first it comes from, the whole idea.
And also to be easier to read it underwater.
Yes, well, we also have a diver watch that we filled with oil. And the reason why we did this watch is again from this functional perspective where we say we have improved the diver watch by adding oil, not because of the pressure, because adding oil or liquid in a watch has been done before with quartz watches. You have a company in Germany called Sin that did that before us, but it was not a mechanical watch, it's a quartz watch. And they have a bubble usually inside. So, and the bubble is not good for reading because it takes away, let's say, the attraction, it takes away the concentration on the information. So by having oil inside, you completely take away the internal refraction that you have. If you go swimming with your submariner, Alfonso, you will see that underwater it becomes a mirror. The dial is a mirror, unless you really face it straight on. So you stop swimming and then you look at your watch straight on. So by having oil inside, you never have that. Actually, our Type 5, that is our diver watch, is more readable underwater than just in the air. And it's because of the oil, but also because of the refraction of the glass is gone, the reflection is gone, and the refraction is gone underwater. So yes, for us, it made it a better product by having the oil inside. So functionally speaking, relation-wise speaking, a diver will feel more secure by having a Type 5 on his wrist than having a watch that he can't read underwater. So it's for us, it made sense in the whole logic of the brand to do that.
Let's talk a little bit, most probably the most advanced watches that you have, the Type 2.
Yes.
How does it work, the e-crown?
Yeah. So also there we crossed a line that was a line, a typical line that the industry has put himself. I was referring to the Apple Watch, but this is another one. Please, no electronics inside a mechanical watch. This is not done. Well, I don't believe that, and I don't agree with that. I think that by adding a certain functionality inside a watch, a mechanical watch that is electronics based, can bring a lot of advantages. Again, I look at watchmaking not from the watchmaker's perspective, but I look at watchmakers making from the user perspective. And when you look at it from the user perspective, you can do a lot with IoT in a mechanical watch. That does not mean I don't respect the mechanical aspect of the watch. I think it was a fundamental ingredient in the project to make sure that the mechanical integrity of the watch was respected. So what does that mean in a concrete way is that between the barrel and the hand, or the disc in our case, there's no interruption, never. There is no electronics in between. So it's a real physical connection between those two. So what is eCrown? eCrown stands for electric or electronic crown. So what we have done is basically we automated what you normally do with the crown. So you refer to the crown of your 0 series that you wear, but most watches, they have a crown. And what is the function of the crown is to set the watch, sometimes to wind the watch, sometimes to stop the movement, to keep the power reserve. Well, all these things, they are done automatically by eCrown. Instead of you doing it, eCrown will do it for you. And eCrown goes even further because inside eCrown, there's also a digital clock. So it always knows the right time. So it will set automatically your watch to the correct time, to the time zone you have chosen, because also eCrown has multiple time zones that you can learn to the watch. And very important, eCrown has been developed like a fine watchmaking, meaning it was designed to run for 25 years without any issue. So you have to make also choices from a digital point of view. So for example, the way we read an information in the watch, so reading an information, for example, the position of a hand is done by a camera, because by doing it with a camera, you don't touch anything. There's no wear. So you just look at it. So from that point of view, you have no friction, you have no wear, so it guarantees the longevity of your watch even the digital part of it. And some people say it's a connected watch. It's not. It's not a connected watch. You can learn everything to the watch. You can learn new times for a certain time zone just by setting it manually, and it will record it. It will overwrite the old time that you had for that time zone with the new time you have set the watch in manually. But people are confused because you can also do it with your smartphone. But it's also do it with your smartphone. You don't need to. You can just do it on the watch itself. And the smartphone is a little more convenient because you can just swipe through. You can type in a city and then you send it into the watch, and then it's in the watch. So there's no connection with your phone after. It's your phone actually works like a remote control for your television. You just send in this channel. It's in the TV, and the TV is not asking, "Are you sure it's now?" And then no, it's once in, it's in. So this is the way Ecran works. Very basically, I'm sorry, we're in interview, so I need to be fast here. But the real idea of Ecran is really to make your mechanical watch more easy to use. That's really what we try to achieve here by adding a component from another industry that we put inside the watch. I will end with a metaphor that I usually use to really make it clear. Very very often people that like watches, they like cars. So then they say, yeah, but I want a mechanical gearbox. Yes, fine. That's cool, have a mechanical gearbox. But what we have done with eCrown is that we have made that mechanical gearbox automatic. We didn't change the engine. We didn't change the gear, the whole train, the transmission, everything. This is all the same. The car is the same. It's just the gearbox has been automated. And that is what we have done, basically. We have automated the crown function. The difference between that and eCrown is that you still have also the possibility to do it mechanically.
Mhm. We have been talking about the future of Ressence in terms of production, in terms of size of the company.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk a little bit about the future of what are you planning to have in terms of watches.
Okay.
Are you planning to have in the future any other complication? Is it possible to show different kind of complication the way you are now showing the time,
Mm-hmm.
having own calibers?
Yes. Yeah, we are working on things like that. I will not go too much in detail, but of course, as a company, we look at what is done in the watchmaking. But you also have to consider the fact that Alfonso, you are, as I told you, you are a bit too much inside watchmaking. You are more in watchmaking than we are, and so I also say, okay, we will take a certain amount of watchmaking expectations when it comes to fine watchmaking, but it would make no sense for us, for example, to have a tourbillon. Why? Because again, what Ressence stands for is to be efficient in the reading of time. So, and not how you do it. For us, the most important is what you do and how you do it, but not the mechanism behind it. It's so that is our problem. So we will search for the most efficient way to make sure that this watch is always on time, etc., etc. That does not mean that we cannot have a more high-end finished movements and things like that. That's okay, but that's industry related things, and you are sensitive to it, and many people in the watch business are sensitive to it because they are watchmakers, and so for them it's their core. It's the way you polish the gears is very important to them. For me, it's a lot more important to be able to read the time in a proper way. So I will always put my focus on that first. And then maybe we can make it more beautiful if you want to. But my first consideration will always be you as a user, you as the person that wears the watch. How can I make sure that you prefer to look at your wrist than look at your smartphone? And that is my first priority when it comes to designing products.
Mhm.
But for sure, I'm not living in a cave. I'm maybe in Belgium, not in Switzerland, but still, I see what happens. I see things that people appreciate about fine watchmaking. I also appreciate them. Huh? Don't get me wrong, but for Ressence, yeah, you have to make a choice, and the choice that we made was the one I just explained.
Okay. Which are the most important markets for Resan as a brand, and how do you see the Spanish market? Is it important for you also?
Mm. So our most important market is still Europe for us. European market is the most important one. I think USA, North America is also quite important, but less than Europe, and is a bit comparable to Asia for us. So Asia, US is a bit comparable, and of course, Middle East is really strong also, thanks to of course our partners locally that are supporting the brand in a very qualitative way. What the Spanish market is considered, as you know, or you don't know, we are represented by Rabat in Madrid and
Good friend of us. Yeah.
yeah, in Madrid and Barcelona.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think Rabat is doing a good job. It's a very qualitative retailer. They know what they talk about. They're passionate about watchmaking, and certainly they're really passionate about independent watchmaking. So I believe they represent independent watchmaking in a very qualitative way, and I'm very happy that people like that are trying to translate that to their customers, and take all this energy to do that, because let's be honest, for them it's easier to sell a bigger brand than to sell an independent brand. So it's there that you feel that they're really driven by what they think is beautiful about watchmaking. So we are very happy with that. Of course, there's the Spain as a country, but of course there's all the South American countries. But there we are not really not yet present as a brand in South America.
Mhm. Let's make the most disappointing question is about the prices. Just for our
Who's not
viewers,
disappointed?
what is the price range of your watches?
We start at 12,500 Swiss francs. That's about the same in euros, ex VAT, and we go up to 48,000 Swiss francs ex VAT. So this is the range we are in. It's not 100,000 or something like that. It's, I think, still okay, I would say, from a price tag point of view. For what, but you get a lot of watch for that price, and that's the big difference between, I believe, independent watchmaking and mainstream brands, is that you get a lot more watch for your money. It's a lot of money, but you get a lot more watch for it. And that is sometimes not so well explained by the industry and by my colleagues and ourselves, of course. I'm part of it. That what you get when you buy an independent brand is so much richer, is so much more than these mass-produced branded watches, compared to what we do. And it's very simple to explain. Just the multiplicator that we have compared to these larger corporations. And when I say multiplicator, is the difference between the cost price and the price you will pay as a customer. This multiplicator is super small when it comes to independent watchmaking, and is huge when you look at these larger corporations. So what do they do with all this money? Well, they pay marketing, they pay publicity, they promote their brands a lot more than we do.
Influencer, ambassadors, everything.
Everything. So you see, so these, it, so we are in the same industry, but the way we do our business is very, very different. And again, it's good because I believe we need both. So the industry need both. So for me, it's fine. It's just that we are in a completely different league. Sometimes to explain it to someone that is not really from the watchmaking industry, I said, yeah, you cannot compare. It's as if you would compare um, a Mercedes and a Formula One car. It's difficult to compare. Because independent watchmakers is like making Formula One cars, and you compare us with a Mercedes, so it's not comparable. So that's the amount of difference that we are. We make one-off pieces, piece by piece by piece by piece, where they have machines that run. Even some companies, there's no light in the factory because you don't need light because it's all robots that do it. So it's completely different, and it's the same in the car industry. When you come in some areas in these huge plants that produce cars, there's no light. It's just robots doing it. So that's the comparison. So you really don't buy the same thing.
Mhm. Okay, what are the pros and the cons of being a Belgian brand in Antwerp instead of a Swiss brand? Is it still important the Swiss made? Are you planning to move everything to Switzerland?
We produce everything in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
There is, I think, only one component on our watches that is not made in Switzerland. It's the bracelet. All the rest is produced in Switzerland. So we are a lot more Swiss made than I think many brands out there. But when you look at our watches, you will read it's made in Switzerland. It's not Swiss made, because Swiss made is a label.
Yeah.
But we consider that we are made in Switzerland. So that really means what it's written. It's produced, assembled in Switzerland. Not that I think would there be another country that could make my components? I probably would work with them. But yes, they have the knowledge. And it's not only the knowledge. They have the ecosystem that is unique. That means that what people very often don't know is that a component of a component on our watches, the worst component that we have goes through 16 different hands before it gets on the bench of a watchmaker. So all these 16 different companies, they are all physically at different places in Switzerland. It's because the industry is organized that way in Switzerland. Whereas when you have an integrated, they call it manufacture, but basically what does it mean is that in the same building you do the whole process at once. So that is so for us as a smaller organization, we need to be there because all these people that do these different processes, they're all located within 30 minutes from each other. So that is why, and that this is unique. You have no other place in the world, to my knowledge, where you can have that. So that's very specific to the Swiss version of watchmaking. Watchmaking is. So we produce in Switzerland. Every watch then is shipped to Antwerp here. We do quality controls, long ones. It's 2 weeks at Ressence, and then we ship worldwide. And after sales is also done here in Antwerp.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to take more of your time. One
You're welcome.
last question.
Okay.
If you were not wearing a Ressence, what brand and model will you wear?
Okay. That's a good question, Alfonso. I don't have one. Am I allowed to say two different ones?
Let's say 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, okay. My first love in watchmaking went to the Bulova Accutron from the 60s, where they were super innovative, basically. It's the first electronic watch, but it's not completely electronic. It's kind of mixture between mechanics and electronics. So, and what is very interesting about that watch is that it tells the time through a wavelength, and it's quite unique. Huh? They're the only ones that did that, and they were just before quartz came out, so they were killed by the quartz because quartz was, of course, a lot more cheap to make, and probably more precise, even though it's quite precise. And also the way the hand moves is very natural because you have 360 steps for 1 second. So that's 360 hertz. You cannot see the hand going from one position to the other. It feels completely fluid. So it gives also this a very nice feel about the way you look at the watch. So that was my first love. I will definitely one day have a Rolex. Feels a bit obvious, but I really admire the way they do their business. There is no other industry with such an example. There is no other industry where you have a company like Rolex. There's none. It's so unique in the world to do what they do. So for me, that would be quite. It's made me disappointing, but I think I think they're a super example to look at and how they do things and the quality of what they do in every aspect of it. It's not only the products. Huh? Look at their distribution, the way they do things. It's such a well thought of organization that I really admire. And of course, when you wear a watch from a company, you also you have a piece of that organization. Huh? So from within the industry, looking at it, I would not wear it because I want to show that I'm successful. Maybe some people do that. Would be more like you cannot know what they do to get to this level of perfection. So that would be more the reason why I would do it.
Okay, Benoît, thank you so much for being the first of these indie talks in
Thank you
Pecados
very
Veniales.
much.
It has been a pleasure to
I
have
thank
you
you,
here.
Alfonso. Thank you
I
very
hope
much.
to see you soon coming to Spain.
Of course, with a lot of pleasure. I love to go to Spain. I think,
Let's
but not.
talk to Rabat to organize something special with Ressence.
Let's do that. Thanks a lot, Alfonso.
Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.